So about a month ago, I did some mock exams. I'd already done some mock exams in the past and I'd done pretty well, so I was feeling quite confident. And the other day, we actually got our results. I was happy because I got A stars. But you want to know the funny thing? That I didn't actually do that much revision for the exam. And so the first best way to get A stars is to sweat it out at the beginning. Say you're doing a course or something which is like 3 years or 2 years, sweat it out in the first year or two, and then the rest will be so much easier. Usually, well, it makes sense for courses to be built starting with the basic knowledge and then building up as it gets more complicated. So if you're trying to build your pyramid of knowledge, it makes sense to have a solid foundation and the rest will come so much easier. For me, I studied really hard for the first year, which meant that I built a solid foundation of knowledge, even the topics which we learned at the very beginning, which most people had forgotten by that point. I was most confident in the earlier topics and therefore I had a better foundation for the rest of the course. And of course it does depend on the subject, but most of the knowledge usually links. So if you already know stuff from the past, then you can usually link it to later on stuff, and then that kind of simplifies the process. And like I said, I did still revise for these exams that I just did, but I didn't need to revise as much as I did in the past, and I still got A stars. This doesn't mean that you can just relax, but it just reduces the stress that you have in later exams. You don't have to revise as much because you've done it so many times that when you look at it or try and recall it, it just comes back to you straight away. By the way, if you want to help out my channel, or if you just have 2 minutes to spare, then there's a little Google form down below which you can just click, which would help me out a lot. So I'd appreciate if you go and fill it out. So the next thing is to use all the time that you have in the place where you're studying. So maybe it's school or college, but maybe you have some study periods that they give you, or maybe you even have lunch times and break times which you usually just mess around in. I promise your life will be so much easier if you just use all the time you have in school, because well, for most people, it's harder to get themselves to work at home. I mean, me personally, I kind of like working at home more because I've got everything in my own space and I just prefer it more. But I feel like most people will get more work done at school. Plus, it means that you can just go to school, spend your day there, get everything done, and then you can just come back home and be a lot more relaxed. For the first year, I spent every single break time I was in school and every single lunchtime just revising and going over stuff I'd learned, and that meant that I had to do less when I was at home. And yeah, sure, you miss out on some time like relaxing your brain or whatever, but most lessons, I don't know, most lessons aren't really that intensive. So yes, maybe it will be a little bit harder on you, but then you can get home and just be completely more relaxed. So stop messing around in your study periods, stop messing around at lunchtime and break time. Just use that time and do an extra hour or two of revision, and you'll be so grateful and you can relax a lot more. Thirdly, I do kind of say this a lot, but if you are doing work at home, then work at the very start of the day. Set yourself the task of getting up tomorrow, going to the toilet, coming back, and doing work straight away. Don't even bother with breakfast. Once you delay it once, you'll keep delaying it until the end of the day, until it's 1 AM, and maybe you only then do like half an hour of work. Whereas if it's just the first thing to do when you get up, it's usually quite hard to delay because there's almost no reason not to. Plus, let's say the task is 50 brain points, you have 100 brain points at the beginning of the day. If you do it and you delay it to the end of the day, then maybe you only have 20 brain points after going out with your friends, going on your phone, doing other random stuff, and then you won't be able to do it, or it'll be much worse when you actually try and do it. But if you do it at the very beginning, you have the most amount of brain points, most amount of brain energy, and you'll do so much more efficient work in less time. Again, I do say this quite a lot, but it's really important. Finally, you need to ask yourself, if I could only study for 2 hours a week, what would I do? Go on, literally think about it now. Maybe pause the video and think, what would you actually study if you only had 2 hours per week? The idea of this is to find the constraint and find the weakness which, if you studied, would actually bring you the most benefit. It means that you don't waste your time or do any stupid tasks, and you actually get on with what you need to get on with the most. Of course, you can actually study more than 2 hours per week, but asking yourself this question and honestly answering it means that you identify the thing that is the most important. So maybe you do biology or something, and there's one particular topic like the structure of a cell, and you just hate it, and it's the worst thing, and you know nothing about it because you can't ever be bothered to study. Bang. There you go. That is the topic that you need to study. If you studied it just for 2 hours, your level of knowledge will go up the most because you're improving the worst thing that you have. So like, it will bring your baseline up, if that makes sense. And to be honest, you already kind of know this, like you don't really have to spend that much time thinking about it. There's definitely a topic that you hate. So those are some tips for getting A stars, and I hope you enjoy this video. See you in the next one.